One of the best ways to tap into casual magic with people is actually to compliment them. And just that little moment of you choosing to find the magic. What do you like about this person? What's beautiful about them? You choosing to notice that will transform the energy of that moment and the energy of that person.
When we're talking about happiness, I feel like we're at a slight disadvantage because as a society, we've been conditioned to associate happiness to milestones and reserving it for only the big days in our life. The wedding day, the job promotion, the acquiring a certain amount of wealth, going on holiday, moving somewhere. And while all of those big moments are amazing, they all add up to like 1% of our lives. And then we are faced with the other 99% of our normal, regular routine, mundane moments. And I refuse to accept that we just have to deal with them, that we just have to face them and just wait along for the right time to be happy. And that's why in this episode, we're going to be talking about how we can actually and practically create our own happiness. I found out about the concept of romanticizing your life a few years ago on social media, and I can safely say it truly did change my life. The second that I realized every single day has the ability and the potential to be just as magical as your wedding day. Like, I'm not even joking. And we are going to get into it this episode. It made my life so much more enjoyable. And I could not think of anyone better who would agree with me on this than UnJaded Jade, who is a creator, podcaster, former study tuber and author who is inspiring hundreds of thousands of women every single day on social media on how to find happiness in the most mundane moments of their lives. In this episode, we're going to be talking about mindset shifts on how you can kind of step away from that I need to wait until I'm happy, I need to wait for the right set of circumstances, and instead take control of your happiness this second, along with some habits and actionable switches, as we always do on Self-Obsessed, to get there. So right before we get into it, be sure to check out the description where you can check out all of my links, what I'm up to, my book, my newsletter, along with Jade's links. She has a YouTube channel. She also just brought out a podcast called Casual Magic. So if you love everything that we've said in this episode, there's a whole podcast dedicated to it, and I've been on it and it's amazing, so I highly recommend you check it out. And lastly, I want to give a big thank you to today's sponsor, Shopify. I love you, and let's get right into it. Hello, Jade.
Hello, Tam. Thank you. It is an honor to be here. I'm seeing the pillows behind the scenes in real life.
I'm just so excited that your magical energy is here on this podcast. I had such a pleasure filming for yours. So this is amazing. I can't wait to get into it. So in true self-obsessed fashion, we always just get right into it. We want to get right into the value. People's time is precious. We're like, here are the answers. Here is the knowledge. So I want to start off with breaking down the concept of romanticizing your life versus casual magic. I love the term casual magic. Is it different? How does it kind of go a step beyond? People are like, I don't know what either of these things mean. Can you break it down?
Okay, so I see casual magic as a branch of romanticizing your life. But I think on social media, the idea of romanticization is almost about seeing yourself as the main character of your life. It's always more about storytelling, right? It's like, no matter what hardship I'm going through, it's like, this is just a tiny moment that is one day going to serve the entire wonderful arc of who I'm becoming. But to me, casual magic is less about the story that you're telling about who you are. It's more about presence and almost mindfulness. And it's a really practical tool to help you become more mindful in your daily life. So it's about zooming in, always searching for little moments that you can find that are casually magic. So for example, a stranger holds the door open for you and you just take a moment to notice and you're like, that's really casually magic. Like, that's actually really sweet that someone did that. People are so nice, you know? And you're finding evidence for them to be nice, right? Because you can always find evidence for people also being stressed and rushing and not very nice. But it's kind of training your brain to search for joy within the little things of life.
Amazing. You know what? That was such a practical definition and breakdown. I didn't know what you were going to say. I was like, they could be exactly the same thing. But I love how you said it's kind of that branch. And I feel like casual magic is so much more accessible to people because it's so true what you said, romanticizing your life, especially when I came across the concept, I think I was in uni. It seemed a little bit out of reach. It's like, I'm a student. I'm not quite where I want to be. I don't live in a big fancy city. I actually used to listen to movie soundtracks though on the way to my part-time job when I was in uni every single day. Because I was like, I'll try my best.
Like, yes, I'm in The Devil Wears Prada.
It was The Devil Wears.
That's so you. Of course it it was.
It was literally the worst product. I was like, I'm working in fashion, whatever. Like,
I'm working my way up in the big city.
Literally, it was Leicester. Anyways.
Now you're in the big city.
Now I'm in the big city.
Manifested.
There you go. But casual magic, yeah, is great because it's truly about, you could be in the library studying and you could find so many things to be grateful for in that moment. Now, anytime I am interviewing the amazing creators or businesswomen that are on this podcast, I found that the reason that they're in these amazing places, teaching people these lessons that they've learned or coming up with these amazing concepts is because they had to go on a particular journey to get there. And I can definitely relate to this. I feel like the reason that we kind of get all of this inner magic to share with the world is because at one point we were struggling with that particular thing and we had to go on this journey by ourselves to figure out how to solve it. And we got so immersed in that experience that we kind of mastered it. And that's what gives us the power to also inspire so many people to do or learn the same thing. So I'd love to know, how did you get here? How did you start? Were you always super optimistic, or was there a time where you felt like happiness wasn't in your control and that's what led you to coining this term?
Great question. So I think when we're children, happiness comes so easily, right? It's like the very nature of being a child means that you have access to the most powerful tool that adults forget, which is imagination. So the way that you look at the world is just you constantly find joy within everything. It's like your eyes are trained to see casual magic. And I remember as a child, like I just had a wonderful childhood in so many ways. I remember I loved the idea of magic and fairies, and I'd look in the garden and just like imagine magic everywhere that I looked. And life felt so rich, even though, I don't need to be, super wealthy in terms of money. Life just feels like it has so much joy. But inevitably, as we go on through life, as we grow up,
The expectations pile on.
the pressures, you are taught that achievement is where you should be placing your joy. It's like you're not really allowed to feel happy until you've reached those milestones. And I think as someone who was always very perfectionistic, hardworking, hustle mindset, I definitely fell into this trap of feeling guilty for feeling happy in my day-to-day life if I hadn't yet achieved all the things that I was working towards. So I was very passionate about getting high grades at school, and I just found it very difficult to allow myself to, sit around and enjoy if I could be studying, if I could be working towards getting those A stars. And so I think one branch of me losing this intrinsic joy and magic of life was just like the hardship of wanting to do incredible things and feeling like you're not enough until you've got them. So I'd say that's one thing I had to overcome in order to then retain this magic that I have now. But something else that really affected me is my mum struggled a lot with her mental health when I was a teenager, and just turned to alcohol as a coping mechanism, and is something that, I'm very thankful we have quite an open dialogue about now, which is why I feel comfortable sharing it. But it was very difficult for me as a teenager, and I think, it forced me to find my own routes to happiness that were beyond her and like reliance on parents. It's like, when I'm able to like close the door of my bedroom and like go into my like cozy hole, that's where my happiness comes. And I remember, like sitting at my desk and having my little herbal tea and like starting to like romanticize the beauty of these little things to find joy when my life and household sometimes felt quite chaotic. So I think casual magic began as a coping mechanism for hardship and turmoil around me. But yeah, over time, casual magic has then become this tool and habit that it's become like core to who I am. And like literally every single day of my life, like whether I'm working, whether I'm with friends, like no matter what I'm doing, if I'm having like a tangibly good day, a tangibly bad day, like casual magic is part of it because it's become part of my entire mindset on the world.
I love that story because you were in such a difficult place and you took something that not only benefits you and has given you such an amazing kind of way to live your life, but also help so many other people to live their lives. So that's incredibly inspiring. You touched a little bit on how you were a perfectionist and how you were working really, really hard. And whether you guys are watching, if you may or may not know, Jade was known as like the ultimate study tuber, and for good reason, right? Your videos were so inspiring, your work ethic, the achievements that you had, the milestone that you had academically as well. Why wouldn't people watch you and subscribe and get all of their study tips from Jade? But I'm interested to know, when you were in that mode of your life where it was work, 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 and especially having an audience of so many people around the world who were kind of expecting that next video of like, how can I work harder? How can I be productive? I imagine it must have been difficult to balance your own joy and your mental health with that pressure to be perfect, not only for yourself, but everybody else.
100%. Yeah. Because I think when you are a naturally driven person, the reason is often not because of external pressures like your parents or, you know, people in your life. It often comes from yourself. And so I was already having these really high expectations for myself. I want to achieve all these things, and then created an entire brand online, kind of like reinforcing that I am someone who is ambitious and who is going to do these incredible things. And so on the days where I was feeling unmotivated, feeling low, you know, maybe would get a test grade back and it was much lower than the expectations that I had for myself and that the world had of me, it would be this double pressure of me beating myself up, but then almost sometimes feeling like a fraud, or, you know, feeling like I need to be this authority online for other students to turn to for advice. And like, how can I be giving that advice if I'm not doing very well?
So if we were to kind of pinpoint when you started incorporating casual magic into that space in your life where it's like, I'm super driven and I'm ambitious and I want the grades and I want to get into university, what did that look like? Because I know that we have a lot of listeners who are still in their study eras, maybe they're in university, they're taking exams, they're like, this is too stressful. How can they kind of achieve their goals while making sure they're taking care of their happiness at the same time?
It's such a difficult one, and I think is a constant learning process. And I think it's okay to have, you know, phases where you are like more hustle focused, and maybe, you know, you also struggle to like maintain, you know, the perfect routines and perfect happiness all the time. Like, that's okay. I don't want people to listen to this and think that you constantly have to be in a state of perfect balance of always being future focused and being present focused. But to me, casual magic is literally the simplest starting point to transform a stressful day.
Yes.
Like, you can imagine you've got an exam tomorrow. You're in the library, you're stressed, you're cramming, like you're just like in one of those cubby holes of the library where there's like, it's completely dark, you know, and you're just like, okay, need to get all this information in my head, 10 hours, let's go. The way that casual magic transforms that moment is you deciding, rather than jumping straight into it, let me just take a step back for a second. Let me look around me. Let me look at the library. Let me just admire the books around me and that I have access to so much knowledge. Let me remember, you know, this gratitude for this opportunity to be here and to be learning when so many people around the world actually don't have this same access to education. You know, let me look around at all the other students who are studying for this exam and to kind of notice for a second, wow, we have this shared sense of belonging. And as you go through life, it's actually increasingly rare to have a sense of belonging with people because everyone's always living their own separate lives. But like, just for this one moment in time, we all have the same common goal of this exam. Like, how special is that? And then you kind of turn to your desk, you look even more micro, and you look at, like, you know, if you've got a hot drink next to you, you can just like take the sip of that drink with intentionality. And like really notice the feeling of it in your mouth, right? Like, engage with your senses. And maybe that takes you 30 seconds. But what you've done in that moment is create space for yourself so that when you do then launch into the grind mode of needing to cram, you have this like inner space that stops it being that bit more stressful. Yeah.
I feel like you've just put me in a trance because Jade, while you were talking about that, I was like kind of doing it as you were saying it, like how you were speaking about engaging your senses. I feel like I've completely just, let me just take a nap here right now. I was like, I could feel my tongue in my mouth. I could hear the jingle of my earring. I could like fully feel my fingers more than I ever have. Because you just don't every single day. You're like, I got to do this. I got to go there. To be fair, even before this episode, me and Jade were like, we have these deadlines and we're going to do this. We're tired.
We girl boss is working so hard.
Since we're talking about owning your reality and making the best of every day, I couldn't think of a better brand to partner with on this episode than Shopify. At this stage of my career, it's really important for me to challenge myself creatively. I've done so many amazing things so far with having this podcast, having my YouTube channel, even writing a newsletter. And I really wanted to do something that would just get me outside of my comfort zone. And I knew that starting a business with Shopify would be the right answer because of how easy it is to get started. If you didn't know, Shopify is a commerce platform that allows you to start, grow, and manage a business no matter what stage of the journey that you are at. Shopify has all of the tools built within their platform to help you along your journey. For example, with Shopify Magic, you have a suite of AI tools at your disposal which allow you to write better product descriptions, improve product images, and improve your email effectiveness. On top of that, as a social media influencer, I love that Shopify caters to us and our needs because it has so many integrations to be able to allow you to also sell your products or services across all major social media platforms. When it comes to leveling up and creating your desired reality, it's so important to know the tools that are going to help you get there so easy and so effortlessly, and Shopify is definitely one of them. And for that reason, I'm actually giving you guys a unique link to click, which will give you a free trial of Shopify. You can go to shopify.com/self-obsessed. Again, that's shopify.com/selfobsessed for you to get started with your free trial today. I love what you said there by using kind of being a student in the library as an example, because I think that's really helpful for people who are like, but my circumstances are really not ideal and I don't enjoy where I am. So what does that look like? I love that you gave that example because it links into a little game I want to play with you. So,
Gamify your life.
Gamify your life, yes. Wait, I just filmed a video on that. Oh yeah, it just came out. I was like, has it come out yet? That's so funny. So I'm going to be devil's advocate, and I'm going to be a character, a few different characters, and I'm going to say why I don't think I can do casual magic, and I want you to tell me how I can. I work a 9 to 5. I really don't get along with my colleagues. There's a super toxic work environment. I live in a city that I don't enjoy. In fact, even in that city, I'm still living with my parents. I feel like I can't really get away. I just have to go in the office every day and work a job where I don't really see myself having a future. You know, that takes up so much of my day. And then I come back to my family where I don't fully enjoy living there. I wish I could afford to move out. How could I possibly take control of my happiness?
Oh, God. It's a hard one, right? And I also don't want it to come across as toxic positivity. I don't want to say to a person in this situation, you should just love your life. Life is brilliant. Romanticize it all. Like, no, you can actually acknowledge that maybe you're not where you want to be right now. But here's the thing. When you're feeling hopeless and you're feeling lost and you're feeling down, that is not a place of inspiration to create the life of your dreams. In actuality, you need to start shifting your mind to a more positive state in order to start dreaming again, in order to start having imagination again. And so what Casual Magic will be doing is you're going to take little moments in all those parts of your day and you're going to find something. You're going to literally ask your brain to find something positive, beautiful, amazing about where you are right now. And if it feels like a lie at the start, that's fine. So, for example, you're at the desk at work. You're surrounded by all these co-workers that you loathe. You're like, oh my God, these people just yapping about nothing. Like, oh my God, fine, whatever. But maybe, you know, while they're like complaining, rather than doing your reactive default, maybe complaining with them, or, you know, in your head, you're doing this narrative of, oh, this person's so annoying. Maybe you can take a step back in your head and you can think, the only reason that these people are complaining so much is because they're going through something. There's some kind of challenge, some kind of difficulty. And already you choosing to do that, you putting yourself into a position of empathy and compassion, that's the start of some casual magic here, right? Because you're connecting back to your humanity, your heart, and already the way that you then react to them is going to be a little bit different and could even change their energy a little bit. And I think one of the best ways to tap into casual magic with people is actually to compliment them or to say something positive. So you say like, you know what, like, I actually love the work that you're doing today. Or like, oh, you're complaining about how bad your hair looks. Like, I actually think your hair looks really beautiful today. And like mean it and say something genuine. And just that little moment of you choosing to find the magic. What do you like about this person? What's beautiful about them? You choosing to notice that will transform the energy of that moment and the energy of that person. So that's a start. Obviously, it doesn't change the whole work context, but it changes one little moment within it. And then you go home, you know you're going back to a family home that you don't love. But again, what if you kind of zoom out and you see that this is temporary? This is a stage of life. And actually, if you look at all the charts of life, when you move out of your family home, you might be seeing your parents 3 times a year, 4 times a year. You actually don't have infinite moments with these people in your life. And I think if you remember impermanence, that is a wonderful tool for casual magic, because again, you're noticing these days are numbered. And like, what can I do today to have one tiny little moment that maybe future me would pay a lot of money to come back to?
I love that, because I was going to say as well, life feels so much more magical when you remember that every moment is fleeting and every phase of life that you're going through is temporary. Part of that example I gave, because it relates to a point in my life where I was at, where I have grown up living with my grandparents my whole life and I love them to pieces. And one thing I used to do, which I felt like really got me in the casual magic mindset, was I used to take pictures of them just doing candid things.
Oh, I love that.
Because I feel like a lot of the time, pictures are only reserved for when everybody's posy or dressed up or we're going somewhere. I would take a picture of my grandma making her breakfast. I would take a picture of my granddad watching the news, which he did every single morning. And I find myself looking at those pictures now because it puts me back at home when I feel a little bit homesick, because I can just see them day to day. And it was doing stuff like that, which in the moment made me realize this is magical and I am going to miss this one day no matter what.
Oh my God, can I tell you about a concept?
Yes. Tell me, teach me, Jade.
Okay,
Put me in a trance again.
Okay. No, it's actually a concept inspired by Dua Lipa's album.
Oh.
So are you familiar with her album called Future Nostalgia?
Yes.
That name, Future Nostalgia, has literally transformed my life. And I talk about that as a term now, future nostalgia. The idea is living your life like you know that one day you're going to be nostalgic about it. Like one day you are going to romanticize this exact moment that you're in, especially because, you know, with the gift of hindsight, when you're looking back, you do tend to forget a lot of the actual hardship, right? You kind of just like have this wonderful haze over your life and you wish that you could just live one day back in that period of time just to experience it again. So living that right now as though future you, with that gift of nostalgia, wants to come back to who you are right now.
I love that. Yes. And it's so practical. I just love it. It's still something I do now. That candid picture thing I still do in my apartment, because I'm like, who knows where I'm going to live next year?
Yeah.
And I'm always going to think, oh, remember that first place I lived in London? Remember what the mornings felt like, how the sun looked when it leaked in through the windows in the mornings? Oh.
I remember this cozy podcast studio. Yes. Remember baby Jade and Tam having their little conversations in their 20s. Like, honestly, you know, one day we're going to be like 50, we're going to be 60, we're going to be 70, looking back at this moment. And it's so special to kind of have that gift of hindsight, knowing one day we will have future nostalgia.
Absolutely. Okay, so for the game, I'm going to do one more little character.
Hit me.
I am going through a breakup right now. And I've been in a really long-term relationship with someone who I thought was the love of my life. I pictured a future with them. And I know that life is going to get better. I know it will. But I just feel so down right now. I feel like my life has been snatched from me. Everything that I've known, that daily routine, is gone.
They broke up with you?
Yes.
Oh.
It was so unexpected. I'm not prepared for this.
Yeah. I think that moments of heartbreak are opportunities to remember where you have love in the rest of your life. Sometimes love is revealed to you in the moments where you feel the least loved. Because especially when you're in a romantic relationship, because of how society values romance, we often, you know, we spend the most time with our partner, we prioritize them more than, say, friends or family. And so a moment of heartbreak is a moment to connect to all the other sources of love and to see them as points of literal casual magic in your life. Like, I dare you to reach out to your friends, maybe people who you haven't been as vulnerable with about your relationship or you struggle to open up with. Like, be brave enough to let them in, because you'll be surprised, you know, when you offer up your vulnerability, how many people are willing to help you in those moments. Like, ringing up your friend and saying, I'm struggling. Please, can you come over? Like asking for that need, like, please come over and help me. And then like when a friend is there, maybe they've got you ice cream, you're watching a movie together, kind of noticing, this is casually magic.
Yeah.
I have so much love here. And maybe I can acknowledge I'm struggling, and yes, I can acknowledge the pain, but I can also acknowledge the love, and to know that nothing is ever fully bad. There's always points of light. There's always points of joy. And this is also a moment to reconnect to yourself in new ways, to remember the magic that lies intrinsically within you, independent of this person that you were with, and to know that whatever you loved about the version of yourself with that person still exists independent of them. And it's a great opportunity to learn about yourself in new ways.
I love the example you gave of your friend coming over with ice cream and watching a movie, because that in itself feels like a movie scene to me. Just like how you were talking about romanticizing your life. And I've watched so many rom-coms and so many chick flicks where normally a woman is in a really rough place at the beginning of the movie. She's always on the couch with her best friend eating ice cream, and she's saying like, he wasn't worth it. And you could do so much better. And they're watching a chick flick themselves. And that's always at the beginning. And then a whole story is about to unfold on the journey that breakup then takes her on, because now she's about to enter a whole new phase of her life. Breakups suck. A lot of them took me through really, really dark phases of my life, and they're horrible. And if you're going through one right now, I really, really feel for you. However, knowing that I've been through so many, it always led to light at the end of the tunnel, and I truly would not be where I am without it right now. I remember one of my harder breakups, it was like midnight, and I realized that the guy that I'd been in a relationship for so long, he was like following girls on Instagram, and he liked his ex, and I was like, oh. So it really just tore at me, because I was like, was I not good enough? And I was thinking all of the wrong things. And I looked in the mirror with like my tear-stained face. I actually wrote about this at the beginning of my book.
I was going to say, I'm familiar.
Are you familiar with the story? And I was like, something needs to change here now.
Yeah.
Without that breakup, I would not be motivated enough or driven by the pain enough to want to embark on the journey that was self-love and even learn what that was about. I always kind of knew what it was about from social media, but there was nothing pushing me onto that. And I think that's why challenges and adversities are so powerful, because they will push you to do the things you never thought you were able of doing.
So true. And I also think the only way with breakups is through. You cannot go around the pain. You cannot ignore it. You can try and work away the pain, right? You can pour that like pain and difficulty into other things and not look at it. But I think what you're suggesting, right? Like realizing that you're in this tough place, being willing to look at those emotions, to feel those emotions, and to use them as your power, to then, find out who you are, to go on this next adventure in the next chapter of your life. You can see it as exciting. You can see it as the planted seed for your eventual blooming.
Yes. So we've spoken a lot about kind of shifting the mindset so far from feeling like maybe you're unlucky and you're like, life is not really serving me, to actually, I could find some things to be happy and grateful for right now. And now we're going to move on to the second part of the podcast, which is all about actionable steps. Every kind of self-obsessed podcast episode and my YouTube videos, if you're new here, follow that structure. So I want to talk a lot about actions and habits we can implement. But before we start, I want to ask you, what was your casual magic of today?
Oh my God. Okay. So when I was en route coming to Canary Wharf, I got out the train and I was walking towards the grand stairs, the escalator that leads you into Canary Wharf with all the skyscrapers. And my first thought, I can't lie, was like, oh my God, the financial heart of London. Like, oh my God, like there's so many miserable people in Canary Wharf. Like genuinely, there's so many people walking around who are like, they are not seeing the casual magic in their days.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they just like shove past you. And so it's like, okay, like this is where we are. But then I saw these two girls standing by the escalator in Santa hats, and they were raising money for charity. And they were dancing and they were singing Merry Christmas, and they were like, like wishing people a wonderful day. Whether people even looked at them or not, they were wishing people a wonderful day. I thought, how magical is that these two humans are giving up their time to do something good for other people.
Stand in the cold.
To stand in the cold in Canary Wharf, the miserable heart of London. You know what I mean? Like, they have the toughest crowd. They have the toughest crowd. They have like these people who literally are not paying them any attention, and yet they are they're really making the effort to brighten these people's days. And I had a chat with one of them, and she said she literally took her day off work today to come and raise money for charity. And it just reminds you of the good of humanity, and had a lovely conversation. And then as I boarded the steps of the escalator and like came out into Canary Wharf, I felt like I had this warm glow within me because of these people's kindness.
Incredible. I love that. Oh, I wish I saw that. I don't know what way you walked to the studio. That's so beautiful. I love that you talk to them as well. Because I feel like you've already seen such a beautiful, positive, casual magic moment. And now you're extending it by kind of putting yourself into it as well. I love that. I also want to share my casual magic of the day.
Please.
Which I was never going to talk about this in the episode because, guys, it's literally morning right now. Like, it's not even lunchtime. So, like, the fact that you already have casual magic and even I do is crazy. But
we're living a romanticized life.
There you go. But I actually had my casual magic when I was doing my skincare. So like first thing in the morning, and I picture this. So I'm in the mirror, putting on my moisturizer like this. I'm just looking at myself. And all of a sudden I start to get these flashbacks of some hard moments in my life, which doesn't happen very often. So it was really random that it happened first thing in the morning. Just things that I struggled with, not very nice memories at all that can kind of like make me feel really upset. And I don't really know where it's going to go. And normally kind of, you'll get flashbacks of times in your life, whether they're good or bad, and you kind of let the moment pass and you get on with what you need to do. But something different happened. What these thoughts made me realize was there have been so many times in my life where I've struggled and I didn't know if I was going to make it out, or I didn't know if I was going to be able to live a better life. And that's what those flashbacks reminded me of. And then I kind of put myself back in the present moment, and I was like, I'm getting ready to go to the studio to film a podcast episode for my podcast that I built by myself, for myself, which is a part of my overall job, which I also built for myself, which links into my own creative passions that I have dreamed of my entire life. I wake up every single morning and the work I do contributes to the big vision that I've always wanted for myself. Last year, every year when I make a vision board, I have one quote in the middle. And the quote in the middle kind of signifies the theme of that year. Last year's was have a vision that makes you want to leap out of bed in the morning.
Ooh,
because when I was like studying or in university or working a part-time job that I didn't quite like, I hated that feeling of waking up and being like, okay, let's go through another day. And I was like, I wonder what it would be like to wake up and be like, I'm excited. And when I was doing my skincare, I was like, I did that. The odds weren't in my favor. The cards that were dealt to me were less than ideal, but I still got myself here nevertheless.
Wow.
And I felt so empowered and so confident and so powerful. And not only is that casual magic for kind of my past journey and where I am now, but it's magical and motivating. Because I'm like, if things didn't work out before and I got myself here, that means no matter how hard things are now, I'm always going to push through and get there. So Jade, previously you've spoken about how happiness is truly personal and it's going to look different to everybody. And for me, that really brings up self-discovery, which has been huge for me in creating a life that truly aligns to me, not just what I think I want or what society tries to tell me that I should want. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about your journey of self-discovery and how that taught you what makes you specifically happy. And was there a time where maybe you thought you were doing things that made you happy, but really you just thought, that's what's supposed to make me happy, but it wasn't actually serving you?
Oh, God, there's so many things I can talk about here. First thing that comes to mind is I went to a very untraditional university. So I went to a university called Minerva. At the time of me applying, it had only existed for 5 years.
Okay.
And so was considered a huge risk for, my parents were like, what the hell are you doing going to this institution? My whole online audience were like, oh my God, what are you doing? Because as a study tuber, there's kind of this assumption I'm going to go to a reputable university, right? And that's going to be the path of greatest joy in my life is, going somewhere that's going to guarantee me a brilliant job. And so deciding to go to this no-name institution was quite terrifying. But I had this gut feeling that this institution was going to be the biggest possible source of self-exploration that I could possibly choose. So the university would take me and a cohort of 160 people from all around the world to 7 countries across the degree. And I'd live with them. I had a roommate my entire 4 years. I would have to do an internship in every single city.
Wow.
And so I lived my entire first year in San Francisco, got to know about the tech scene, entrepreneurs, did so many interesting projects there. And then across the other 3 years, I lived in Argentina, Berlin, Seoul, Taipei, and London. And it was just the most transformative experience of my life because I grew up in a very small town, and then getting to experience all these places within the world, I gained so much self-trust in my ability to navigate anything. But yeah, I think one of the more personal things that I learnt in this environment was, so I thought I was straight my entire life, and it was just very taboo to like even consider questioning my sexuality, because I went to like an all girls school, which is very common in my area. Like it was like all the state schools were pretty much all boys and all girls, which was just like, I don't know why, but in this school, everyone, like, I didn't know a single queer person. I didn't have any queer representation. And so I never questioned my sexuality. But then in university, because I was around all these people from all around the world, and I was put in all these new contexts, new environments, it was such a safe place to start to ask really difficult core questions about who I am, and to have a community of people who would hold me through that really difficult journey, because I had so much internalized homophobia. Also, my parents were like very homophobic, been on a big journey with them, and came from a small town. So it's just been a really, 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 really hard journey to being comfortable in my queerness. It's literally been like a solid 4 or 5 year journey of like consistent self-exploration and having to overcome like a lot of inner critics. And so I'm really grateful for that environment, those people, that institution, for being a safe place for so much exploration, but also for accelerating my journey to owning who I am.
Thank you for sharing. That was also an incredible story. I had no idea, and such a great kind of illustration of how you found your own happiness. When I guess so many people were pushing onto you, this is what happiness should look like. You should marry this type of person or go to this type of school. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Well done you, honestly.
Thanks.
Amazing. And to be in your early 20s and to have built a life that truly serves you and your needs, when it's so much easier and so much more comfortable if we were to just follow other people's expectations. Just go with but this is just what people do, so just do it. Because then you're not going to be judged and people won't ask questions, and then you don't have to have difficult conversations with your family about what your choices are.
Yes.
To go through all of those challenges for the sake of your own happiness takes so much bravery. So round of applause, please, for Jade, because I love that. Thank you for sharing.
I also quickly just want to say, I feel like it's easy to follow society's expectations on the surface. But I also think when we just do what we're told and what's suggested to us, our soul dies.
You will pay the price for the rest of your life.
Here we go.
That's
exactly.
It. Yeah.
And so it's easy, but it's also far harder.
So that brings us to the final section of this episode, which is in every Self-Obsessed episode. We always end with homework. These are just a few practical steps that we're going to share with the audience to basically ensure that everything that you've learned today, anything that may have inspired you, you're going to actually be able to implement. We are not about consuming self-development and then not actually actioning it in our lives. I want you to leave every single episode actually having made real progress. So, Jade, first I'd love to ask, what content has inspired you on this journey? Was it a movie, a TV show, a book, a podcast, even a piece of music that got you into this casual magic mindset and lifestyle?
Oh, so much. I think we're so lucky, aren't we, to have so many resources nowadays. But I would recommend there's 2 wonderful books by the same author, and they were huge in my mindfulness and spirituality journey. And they are A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle and The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Both of these books will teach you that happiness comes not in chasing achievement, not in anything future focused. Happiness is literally about being present, and that happiness can be found in every single moment of your life, no matter what your external circumstances look like, because all you got to do is pay attention. And the second you just focus on your breathing, you really come into your senses, that's where the happiness is. So I definitely recommend those books.
Amazing. I'll share mine as well. So for me, my kind of content always coincides with whatever phase of life I'm in this sounds bad, but to get through that phase. Because for so long it was like, I'm in school and I don't really want to be here, so what do I do? So when I was in uni and I was studying, I used to make Pinterest boards of study aesthetic, because it's like, otherwise what? I'm going on Pinterest or Instagram and I'm seeing influencers living their best lives, and that doesn't look like my reality. So then I'm getting sucked into this kind of thing of comparing myself and feeling like I want to live like that, but I don't. If what I'm consuming is pictures of people going to the library, getting their work done, getting good grades, that's motivating me and encouraging me because it aligns with the life that I can see in front of myself. Same goes for, well, when I was dreaming of living in London / when I am now. I think we can have these dreams of I want to live in the big city, and then people always say you'll live there for a year and then you'll be like that city's biggest hater. You're like, I hate New York, or like London's too grey and miserable and people are mean here. But I want to keep the magic alive from when I first moved, and I was like, I love this place. So my answer to that would always be to watch movies about people in the big city and how they romanticize it. And just like I said before, listening to a movie soundtrack has me moving in a whole different energy. I love it. It has me like looking up at the skyscrapers, looking at London, just like, look at the buildings here. I grew up in such a small town. There were no types of buildings like this around. All I could see was shrubbery, you know? So how lucky am I? Me and the sheep. There were literally sheep behind my family home. I'm not even joking. So yeah. My next question is, if you were to give the listeners kind of one practical tip today to start their casual magic journey, what would it be?
I would say you can do it today. You don't need to wait. This is not one of these pieces of advice that is awaiting the perfect moment when you have loads of time. Like, no, you can actually do it right now. You can actually pause this podcast or this video and you can look around you.
Yes.
You don't need to go to a certain location. You don't need to go to a certain place. Right here, right now, wherever you are, if you're on the bus on your way to school, if you're, on your break at work, you can pause this and I want you to look around and I want you to ask that question. What is casually magic right now? It's fine if you're not instantly leaping and thinking, oh, this is the most beautiful day of my life. That's fine, because you literally do have to train your brain to look for beauty. But start asking that question. And I dare you to ask it to yourself every single day.
Incredible. I'd love to link into that as well. You journal, right? Like guided
journals? Do I journal?
I'm sure you do. So obviously a lot of journals out there, whether they're guided or just blank pages, obviously it's always recommended to write what you're grateful for that day. But I found that journaling in a particular way helped me be more positive throughout the day, where if I knew that at the end of every single day, I have a gratitude section in my journal, it makes me from the morning look for things to be grateful for, especially when I go back in old entries and I look through what like my recap of the day was or what I was grateful for. I'm like, let me try and find something to journal about tonight. Another thing I do is my partner and I, when we get into bed every single night and we're starting to fall asleep, we ask each other, what was your peak and pit of the day? And that means every day I wake up and I'm like, what is my favorite thing of the day that I'm going to be able to say later on?
I love that.
So I think
You're
it's
literally
just
priming your brain.
Yeah, exactly. To look for it, yeah. And then my final question is, if people are going through a little bit of a tough time, maybe they're stressed with exams or they're just going through a stressful time or a difficult time, do you have any practices that you use in your own life when things are just a little bit chaotic to kind of break out of that and do your casual magic? Is it meditation, for example? You spoke earlier about kind of engaging with all of your senses.
Yeah, literally meditation. Meditation and journaling are the two habits that are most essential for my life. And exercise, I'd say those three.
Yeah.
Because all three of those change your brain chemistry. It's actually very hard when you're stressed, when you're bogged down, like your entire chemistry of your body is in overdrive, right? You're in fight or flight mode. And from that place, it's very difficult to feel joy. You actually need a practice to shift you out. And so what meditation does, you don't need to have a life epiphany. All you're doing is closing your eyes and just focusing on the now. So you start focusing on your breathing, you start noticing, the feeling of your inhale and exhale in your nostrils. You start feeling it as your chest is rising as you inhale, how your belly is rising, like just feeling breath in your body is one of the most grounding habits you can use to be here in the present right now. Journaling, also another amazing habit. And I think sometimes if you are in that really difficult place, it's not easy to just write down what you're grateful for. So I'd recommend by first brain dumping. Just get out all the thoughts. They don't actually have to be positive, right? You can write about how stressed you are. You can write all the turmoil in your head, because once you've got that down, then you can start to shift towards what am I grateful for? What is casually magic right now? And then exercise is quite literally a way to shift your entire body's chemistry. I don't know if you've ever experienced when you do a workout and you felt so unmotivated before, you really didn't want to be there, but when you end that workout, you feel like a new person.
Always.
Right? You're looking around, you're like, oh, the world is actually really beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, life's actually not that stressful.
Like, oh, you actually have to do exercise to be a fully functioning human.
Yeah, you're like, oh,
is,
damn, like, there's actually, there's no way around it. You can go through it. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That was so practical, so easy to follow. So thank you. I'm sure so many people are going to just be so inspired by that and be able to follow it. That does bring us to the end of this episode, but I didn't even want it to end. This was so much fun. It's always a pleasure recording with you. If you guys watch this episode, you can definitely check out the one that I did with Jade on her podcast.
It's amazing. Tam spills wisdom as usual.
But even if you don't, please, please, please check out Jade's podcast, Casual Magic anyways. It's so amazingly well thought out. Everything she includes in it is just, I just don't even have words. Definitely check out her Instagram as well. I particularly enjoy all of the stories that she posts of her life and what she's getting up to, and her posts with lengthy captions on prompts that you can use to find your casual magic and her own experience in casual magic that day. It's just, I'm all for following accounts on social media, which makes social media a more productive place to be in because it inspires you or it helps you vibrate a little bit higher. But thank you all so much for watching. I will see you same time next week on Wednesday for the last episode of Self Obsessed Season 4. And thank you, Jade, for being here.
Thank you, Tam. Bye, everyone.